Hello, all my dear students. I'm Amit Ajmani, your science faculty, and I welcome you all to Sri Jendra Rank Zone classes. And this is the first lecture of the chapter Metals and Non-Metals. Now, we already know about metals and non-metals. We have studied so many things about it. We need to brush up all the details regarding the metals and non-metals. Let us see how exactly these details are. We know that at the moment, there are 118 chemical elements known at present to us, right? And on the basis of the properties of all the elements, the classification has been done, and broadly they are divided into metals and non-metals. Of course, there are metalloids also, right? What are metals? What are non-metals? We already know. Let us have a brief about them. Metals are the elements, except hydrogen, which form positive ions. And how do they form positive ions? They do so by losing electrons. And that is why they form positive ions and they are called electropositive elements. The most abundant metal in the earth crust is aluminium, which is about 7% of the earth crust. And the second most abundant metal in the earth crust is iron, approximately 4% of the earth crust. Talking about non-metals, there are 22 non-metals, and out of these 10 non-metals are solids. One of them is liquid, which is bromine, and the remaining 11 non-metals are gases. Now, these non-metals are the elements which form negative ions because they accept or they gain electrons, and that is why they are known as the electronegative elements because of their forming the negative ions. Talking about an exception, that is hydrogen. It is the only non-metallic element which loses electrons to form positive ions, that is hydrogen ions. Depending upon the availability, the most abundant non-metal in the earth crust is oxygen, which is approximately 50% of the earth crust. And the second most abundant non-metal is silicon, approximately 26% of the earth crust. Now let us talk about a few physical properties of metals and non-metals. Starting up with metals, we know that metals are malleable. What is meant by saying that metals are malleable? It means that metals can be beaten down into thin sheets with a hammer without breaking. And this property, which allows the metals to be hammered into thin sheets, this property is called malleability. Gold and silver are some of the best malleable metals, followed by aluminium and copper. But there are few exceptions also. Mercury, as we know, is a liquid non-metal. Of course, it cannot be beaten down into sheets. It is non-malleable. Similarly, sodium and potassium metals are also exception to this property. The second physical property of metals is that metals are ductile. Ductile means metals can be drawn into wires. And this property of metals, by virtue of which they can be drawn into wires, this is called ductility. Again, gold and silver are among the best ductile metals, followed by copper and aluminium. Again, the exceptions are sodium, potassium, and mercury. They are non-ductile. They cannot be drawn into wires. The next property of metals is that metals are good conductors of heat and they are good conductors of electricity. Let us try to relate both these points one by one. By saying that metals are good conductors of heat, we mean that metals allow heat to pass through them easily. And this property of metals of conduction of heat is called thermal conductivity. Among metals, silver is the best conductor of heat. After that, we have got copper and aluminium. They're also very good conductors. Normally, all the cooking utensils and water boilers they are made up of copper or aluminium because of their this property that they are good conductors of heat. Talking about the exception, the poorest conductor of metals of heat in metals is lead, and mercury metal is also a poor conductor of heat. Metals are good conductors of electricity. That means they allow electricity to pass through them quite easily as they offer very little resistance to the flow of current, and that is why their electrical conductivity is high. Silver is considered to be the best conductor of electricity, followed by copper and gold, aluminium and tungsten. Now the electric wires are made up of copper, we know, and mainly aluminium also. Why? Because both of them are very good conductors of electricity. Why not silver? Very simple to reply. It's quite expensive, right? Now metals are good conductors of electricity. There is a reason behind it. And the reason is that they contain free electrons, which can easily move through the metals and conduct electric current. Fine. The next property of metals is that metals are lustrous. They are shiny and they can be polished. This property of metals of having a shining surface is called metallic luster, also known as chamak in Hindi. Metals, we know that they are generally hard, but there are a few exceptions: sodium and potassium. These are soft metals, so soft that they can easily cut with a knife. Next property of metals is that metals are strong. Exceptions are again sodium and potassium. They are not strong, right? Because of the strength, the metals can hold large weights without breaking up. Next property of metals is metals are solids at room temperature, and we know an exception is mercury. Mercury is the only metal which is liquid at room temperature. Next property of metals is that metals usually have high melting point and high boiling point. There are a few exceptions to it. First exception is that of sodium and potassium. They have comparatively quite low melting and boiling point of 98 degrees and 64 degrees Celsius respectively. Quite importantly, there are these two metals, gallium and cesium. They have a very low melting point, which is 30 degrees Celsius and 28 degrees Celsius respectively, which is so low that if you just keep these metals, gallium and cesium, in your hands, they will start melting in the hand because of our body heat, right? Next property is that metals have high densities. That means they are quite heavy, but exceptions are again sodium and potassium metals. Next property of metals is metals are sonorous. Now sonorosity, some students think that sonorosity is producing sound, but it is not sound, it is producing a ringing metallic sound, right? That sound is ringing sound. That is a different sound. Otherwise we hit a wooden door or we hit a plastic sheet, even that is going to produce sound, but that is not being sonorous. It is the metallic ringing sound, and this property is called sonorosity or sonorousness. Next property is that metals usually have a silver or gray color, but we have got few exceptions like copper and gold. Copper has a reddish brown color, whereas gold has a yellow color. So these are a few physical properties of metals. Now let us compare these physical properties of metals with the physical properties of non-metals. We'll compare each and every one of these properties one by one. We saw that metals are malleable, but the non-metals are non-malleable and they are non-ductile. That means they cannot be drawn into wires, and if hammered, they will break easily. So the properties of non-metals are in contrast with that of the metals. Metals were good conductors of heat and electricity, we studied. Non-metals do not conduct heat, do not conduct electricity, but there is an exception. Carbon in the form of graphite is an exception. It is the only non-metal which is a good conductor of electricity, and it is such a good conductor that it is used for making electrodes of our dry cells. Next, metals were sonorous and lustrous, but non-metals are non-lustrous. They are non-shiny except iodine. Being a non-metal, it should be non-lustrous, but it has luster appearance that of metals. Non-metals are non-sonorous. They are generally soft except diamond, which is extremely hard. It's a form of carbon, we know. Non-metals are not strong. Non-metals can exist in all the three forms. They may be solid, they may be liquid, they may be gaseous at room temperature. Liquid is the only one, that is bromine. It is the only non-metal which is liquid at room temperature. Non-metals have comparatively low melting point and low boiling point, except diamond, which has a high melting and high boiling point. Then non-metals have low densities. That means they are comparatively lighter substances. They are non-sonorous. They do not produce that ringing sound. And non-metals, they occur in different colors. Example, sulfur is yellow in color. Phosphorus, a non-metal, is white or red in color. Graphite, the form of carbon, is black in color. Chlorine, being a non-metal, it is yellowish green in color. Hydrogen and oxygen are also non-metals which are colorless. So these are a few properties of non-metals which are in complete contrast with that of metals, with a few exceptions in both of them. We need to remember these exceptions. Clear? Now we'll be discussing about very important thing, that is the chemical properties of metals. This now you need to focus and need to relate how actually metals react with various substances. What are the products formed? Let us see one by one. The first chemical property that we are going to study about is the reaction of metals with oxygen. Now, whenever metals react with oxygen, they form metal oxides. And one important thing that we need to remember is that these metal oxides are basic oxides. They are basic in nature. That means that if they will react with water, they will form base. For example, sodium is a metal which reacts with oxygen. It forms sodium oxide, which is a basic oxide. This sodium oxide, when reacts with water, forms sodium hydroxide. Similarly, magnesium is a metal which reacts with oxygen to form magnesium oxide. Aluminium is a metal, reacts with oxygen to form aluminium oxide. Zinc is a metal, reacts with oxygen to form zinc oxide. Iron is a metal, reacts with oxygen to form iron oxide. These all are basic oxides. Clear? Copper, another example is given, reacts with oxygen to form copper oxide, again a basic oxide. So metals, whenever they will react with oxygen, they will form metal oxides which are basic in nature. Now another point we need to relate is that there are certain metals which are comparatively more reactive than others. So if a metal is more reactive, then it is going to react with oxygen at room temperature itself only, because it is more reactive. But if it is a bit less reactive, then it won't react with oxygen at room temperature. We need to heat it. And the lesser reactive the metal is, the more heating is required to make it react with oxygen. Right? So this is the first chemical property of metals. Let us relate the second property of metals, that is reaction of metals with water. Now whenever metals react with water, what they do is they will displace hydrogen, which will be liberated in the form of hydrogen gas. Evolution of gas will take place and metal hydroxides are formed. Now, displacing hydrogen and liberating hydrogen gas is a characteristic properties of metals. And very importantly, we know that whenever this hydrogen gas is liberated, there is a brisk effervescence, and this hydrogen gas, when we bring a lighted matchstick, it starts burning with a pop sound. It is inflammable gas, it will start burning, and it is a characteristic property of hydrogen to burn with a pop sound, right? For example, calcium reacts with water and it forms calcium hydroxide along with the liberation of hydrogen. Similarly, when iron reacts with water, it will also displace hydrogen and it will form iron 2,3 oxide, that is combination of ferrous and ferric oxide, and hydrogen gas will be liberated, right? So this was the second property. Again, in the second property, you need to remember that if a metal is more reactive, that means it is capable of reacting with even the cold water, that is water at room temperature. But if the reactivity decreases, in that case, if the metal is not reactive and not reacting with cold water, then we have to heat the water. It will react with warm water. A lesser reactive, we have to further heat. With boiling water, it will react. Further less reactive, it will react with steam. Now there is one question, that metals which are very reactive like sodium and potassium, they are very reactive, so they are stored under kerosene, because if they are not stored under kerosene, they will react with the oxygen or the moisture, water present in the atmosphere. That is why, in order to protect them, we always store these very reactive metals under kerosene, so that there should be no direct reaction taking place between them and the oxygen or water present in the atmosphere. Clear? Coming to the third chemical property of metals, that is reaction of metals with dilute acids. Now, whenever metals react with dilute acids, once again they will show displacement reaction, hydrogen gas will be evolved, and metal salts will be formed. Taking a few examples, like if we react sodium with hydrochloric acid, this sodium will displace hydrogen and take up chlorine with it. So it will form a salt, sodium chloride, and hydrogen gas will be evolved. Again, if aluminium is reacted with hydrochloric acid, aluminium will displace hydrogen, take chlorine and form aluminum chloride and liberate hydrogen gas. This same reaction will occur with all the reactive metals, whether it is sodium or calcium or potassium or iron or zinc or aluminum. The same salt will be formed along with the liberation of hydrogen gas. This is the case with hydrochloric acid. If we react these metals with dilute sulfuric acid, in that case, once again, they will displace hydrogen gas, which will be evolved as a byproduct, and metal sulfates will be formed. For example, if sodium reacts with sulfuric acid, sodium will displace hydrogen and take SO4 with it to form sodium sulfate. Hydrogen gas is evolved. Same way, if we talk about other metals like zinc or magnesium, even they react with sulfuric acid in the same way. They will just displace hydrogen and take sulfate to form zinc sulfate or magnesium sulfate or any sulfate along with the liberation of hydrogen. Now, one quite important thing is this displacement reaction. We are talking with hydrochloric acid, we are talking with sulfuric acid, but we do not relate it in case of dilute nitric acid. Why? Because nitric acid is a very strong oxidizing agent, because of which it oxidizes the hydrogen which was produced into water. So very few metals displace hydrogen or liberate hydrogen when they react with nitric acid, among which magnesium is one of them. So magnesium, when reacted with nitric acid, will displace hydrogen and form a salt, magnesium nitrate, evolving hydrogen gas. Right? So this is the third chemical property of metals, reaction with dilute acids, displacing the hydrogen and liberating the hydrogen gas. Here we should be familiar with the term aqua regia. Now what exactly is aqua regia? It is a freshly prepared mixture of 1 part of concentrated nitric acid and 3 parts of concentrated hydrochloric acid. And this combination, this mixture is highly corrosive. It is a fuming liquid and it can literally dissolve all the metals. It can dissolve even gold and platinum, right? If we talk about separate concentrated nitric acid or individually taking concentrated hydrochloric acid, they are not capable of dissolving gold or platinum metals. But when they are combined in this ratio 1:3, when they are taken in the form of aqua regia, now they will dissolve even the gold and platinum. So aqua regia, you need to relate what is aqua regia, what is that mixture. Now we talked about some metals being more reactive, some metals being less reactive. For showing the reactivity, you must have studied already the reactivity series of metals. It is also known as activity series of metals. In this series, the metals are placed as per their decreasing chemical reactivity. Means the more reactive metals will be placed at top and the less reactive metals will be placed at bottom. Now, as per this series, we can very well relate that potassium is the top reactive metal, followed by sodium, then calcium, then magnesium, then aluminium, and the reactivity goes on decreasing, which means that zinc is less reactive than all the metals above it, and it is more reactive than all the metals below it. As per it, we can see that silver, gold and platinum, which comes downward, these are least reactive metals, right? So this is the reactivity series of metals which you need to relate. Based on these reactivities, now we will try to understand the reaction of metals with salt solutions. We know that salt solutions are just the mixtures of metals and non-metals in their aqueous form, right? Now, when we take a salt solution of any metal, let us say metal B, and we add any other metal, let us say metal A, then now what will happen is it will be a reaction based on the reactivities of A and B. If metal A is more reactive than metal B, then it will displace metal B and it will form its own salt solution. But in case metal A is less reactive, then it will not be able to displace and there will be no reaction. Right? Now, the examples that we are going to see, in these examples, make sure that you relate the colors of the salt solutions. For example, copper sulfate, it is a blue colored solution. When we add zinc in the form of a rod or zinc nails or granules, anything, then in that case, zinc, because it is more reactive than copper, what it will do is it will displace copper and it will form zinc sulfate, the salt solution of its own metal. Now this zinc sulfate is colorless and this copper is reddish brown. So we will get a deposition of reddish brown copper over zinc sulfate. In other way, it may also be asked that the blue colored solution is disappearing. It is becoming colorless. It is decolorizing. So the blue color of copper sulfate will decolorize on adding zinc. Why? Because of the formation of zinc sulfate, which is colorless. Why? Because zinc is more reactive, so it will show the displacement reaction. Let us see a few more examples of it. If we add iron which is gray in color, to copper sulfate, which is blue in color. Now, once again, iron is more reactive than copper. Again, copper will be displaced and salt solution of iron will be formed. That will be iron sulfate. This iron 2 sulfate or ferrous sulfate, sorry, this ferrous sulfate is a greenish solution. So now we will observe that the blue color of copper sulfate will turn into green and we will find a deposition of reddish brown copper. Next example, if we take silver nitrate, which is a colorless solution, and now we add the reddish brown copper to it. Now copper is more reactive than silver, so it will displace silver, which is grayish white metal, and it will form its own salt solution, that is copper nitrate, which is blue in color, right? So these are a few colors that you need to remember, and whether the reaction will take place or not, you need to relate with the help of the reactivity series. As to the metal is more reactive, only then it is going to just displace it, right? Now one question which comes quite importantly is why we find few holes, few pores if we try to store copper sulfate in iron utensil. It is not advisable to store the salt solutions in metal utensils. Why? Because again we have seen above that iron is more reactive than copper. It will displace copper and it will form an aqueous solution of iron sulfate. So the iron from that container, from that pot, from that vessel will get dissolved, because of which we will find pores or holes. So that is why copper sulfate should not be stored in iron or zinc or any of these type of metallic containers. Clear? So this is very important property of reaction of metals with the salt solutions. Clear? Next property is reaction of metals with chlorine. Now chlorine is a non-metal which gains electrons, and metals will lose electrons. So whenever metals react with chlorine, these metals will donate electron and become positively charged. They will become ions, right? And chlorine after gaining electron will become negatively charged, and the type of chlorides will be formed. It will be ionic chlorides or electrovalent chlorides. So whenever metals react with chlorine, they will form electrovalent chlorides. For example, calcium reacts with chlorine to form calcium chloride, iron reacts with chlorine to form iron chloride, and these all chlorides are ionic in nature because of the formation of ions due to the losing and gaining of electrons. Got it? Next chemical property is reaction of metals with hydrogen. Now only a few reactive metals like sodium and potassium, only they react with hydrogen. Not all the metals react with hydrogen, and when they react with hydrogen, they form hydrides, which are again ionic in nature. These are ionic compounds. For example, sodium reacting with hydrogen to form sodium hydride. This sodium hydride is ionic hydride, right? So these are a few chemical properties of metals. You need to relate the products formed when metals react with all these that we have discussed. What all properties we have seen? We have seen the reaction of metals with oxygen. Second was the reaction of metals with water. Then we saw the reaction of metals with salt solutions and with dilute acids. Next we saw the reaction with chlorine and the reaction with hydrogen. Clear to all? Now we will discuss the chemical properties of non-metals. All the properties will be repeating. that we have done already with the case of metals. Let us see how non-metals react with oxygen. Now, when non-metals react with oxygen, they will also form oxides, but these oxides will be either acidic oxides or they will be neutral oxides. For example, carbon, which is a non-metal, when it reacts with oxygen, it forms carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is an acidic oxide. It means that when this carbon dioxide will react with water, it will form an acid, and which is carbonic acid in this case. Similarly, sulfur is a non-metal which reacts with oxygen to form sulfur dioxide. This sulfur dioxide again is an acidic oxide, which when reacted with water will form sulfurous acid. Now it's not compulsory that the non-metals will form acidic oxides. Some of the non-metals also form neutral oxides. For example, hydrogen is a non-metal which when reacts with oxygen forms water which is neutral. It's not acidic, we know it. Clear? So the non-metals react with oxygen to form either acidic oxides or neutral oxides. This is the first chemical property of non-metals. Talking about the second chemical property of non-metals with water. Now, metals reacted with water, they displaced hydrogen because they can provide the electrons to the hydrogen in order to displace it. But non-metals actually they cannot give electrons to reduce the hydrogen ions of water into hydrogen gas. Therefore, non-metals do not react with water in any form. They do not evolve hydrogen gas like metals. Clear? The next chemical property is reaction of non-metals with dilute acids. The same reason applies here also. Non-metals do not react with dilute acids. Why? Because they cannot displace hydrogen from acids. Why? Because in order to displace it and in order to convert it into hydrogen gas, electrons needs to be supplied to hydrogen ions. And non-metals are themselves acceptor of electrons. They cannot give electrons, right? So they themselves being acceptor of electrons, they are not in a position to provide electrons to the hydrogen ions of the acids, and that is why they cannot reduce them to hydrogen gas. Hence, they do not react with dilute acids. No reaction of non-metals with dilute acids. Next chemical property is reaction of non-metals with salt solutions. Just like metals, same case happens with non-metals also. A more reactive non-metal will displace a less reactive metal from its salt solution. Right? Taking an example, like sodium bromide reacts with chlorine. Now chlorine and bromine, these two are both non-metals, but chlorine being more reactive will displace bromine and it will form a salt solution of its own with sodium, that is sodium chloride. Clear? The next chemical property of non-metals is with chlorine. Now we know that non-metals will gain electrons. Chlorine being a non-metal itself will also tend to gain electron. That is why they never form ions. Whenever non-metals react with chlorine, they form covalent chlorides. Now these covalent chlorides are formed by the sharing of electrons. And because there are no ion formations taking place, that is why these covalent chlorides are non-electrolytes. They do not conduct electricity and they are usually liquid or gases, just like normal covalent compounds are. For example, hydrogen being a non-metal reacts with chlorine to form hydrogen chloride. Phosphorus is a non-metal which reacts with chlorine to form phosphorus trichloride. These are both of them are covalent chlorides. Clear? Next is the reaction of non-metals with hydrogen. Again, non-metals react with hydrogen and again they will form covalent hydrides. The reason being the same, that non-metals cannot form ions. They only react either with chlorine or hydrogen just by sharing of electrons with them. And that is why covalent bonds are formed between them and covalent compounds are formed. For example, sulfur is a non-metal that reacts with hydrogen to form hydrogen sulfide, which is a covalent hydride. Similarly, nitrogen is a non-metal which reacts with hydrogen to form ammonia, again a covalent hydride. So these are the chemical properties of non-metals. Reaction with oxygen, reaction with water, reaction with dilute acids, reaction with salt solutions, reaction with chlorine, and reaction with hydrogen. So we have seen 6 chemical properties of metals as well as non-metals. Right? Now next we'll be discussing about a few uses of metals and non-metals. Let us start up with metals first. Copper and aluminium, they are used to make wires to carry the electric current. Why? Because of their property of being good conductors of electricity. Iron, copper and aluminium, they are used to make household utensils as well as factory equipment. Zinc, very important use. It is used for galvanizing the iron so that it may be protected from rusting. Metals like chromium and nickel, they are used for electroplating and they are also used in the manufacture of stainless steel. Aluminium is used in the form of aluminium foils and it is widely used as a packaging material either for medicine or cigarettes or food materials. Very common day to day household product. Silver and gold metals, we know that they are very expensive and they are very less reactive, because of which they keep on shining even after a long time. They do not tarnish, they do not corrode, and that is why they are used for making jewelry. Very thin foils of silver and gold, they are also used to decorate sweets. Clear? Now we know that mercury, the liquid, the only liquid metal, it is used in making thermometers for checking the temperatures. Quite important. Certain metals like titanium and zirconium, they are used in defense. They are used in atomic energy, nuclear energy. They are used in space science projects. And that is why these metals are called strategic metals. Clear? Next use is the metal lead. It is widely used in making the car batteries. So these are just a few important uses of a few metals in our day-to-day life. Now talking about non-metals, what are the various uses of non-metals? Let us try to relate. First of all, talking about hydrogen, very important non-metal used in so many things. Let us see where all it is used. First of all, it is used in the process called hydrogenation, in which the vegetable oils are made from the vegetable ghee, right? This hydrogen is also used in the manufacturing of ammonia, and this ammonia is further used to make the compounds which are used as fertilizers for our crops. Liquid hydrogen is used as a rocket fuel along with liquid oxygen. Fine. So these are very important uses of hydrogen. Talking about carbon, we already studied in the physical properties that carbon in the form of graphite, it is used for making the electrodes of the electrolytic cells or the dry cells. Right? Nitrogen, a very important non-metal which is used in the manufacturing of ammonia, nitric acid and various fertilizers, because nitrogen is a macronutrient for plants. It is a nutrient which is required by plants in large quantities. Fine. This nitrogen is also used to preserve food material. Why? Because it is almost inert. We have seen the case of rancidity in the first chapter when the food became rancid. Why? Because it comes in contact with the oxygen, it gets oxidized. So to prevent rancidity, all the potato chips manufacturers, they just flush these chips with nitrogen, which prevents rancidity and preserves the food material. Right? Sulfur is another non-metal which is very important. It is used as a fungicide to kill fungus, and it is also used in making gunpowder. This sulfur is further used in a process called vulcanization of rubber. Fine. So these are a few uses of non-metals. Right. Now, a few important things related to a few important metals and non-metals. Let us try to relate these facts. The most abundant element on earth is oxygen. The most abundant metal is aluminium, as already been told. The liquid metal is mercury. It is the only metal which is liquid at room temperature. A lustrous non-metal, we already discussed, that is iodine. It is one of the most important exceptions, that it is lustrous, shiny just like metals. A hard non-metal is diamond, which is a form of carbon. The soft metals, the exceptions in metals are sodium and potassium, so soft that they can be cut even with the help of a knife. The best ductile metals are gold and silver. The best conductor metal is silver. Platinum is also given a name of noble metal. The metal which is kept in paraffin wax is lithium. The non-metal conductor is graphite, which is a form of carbon. Coinage metals, very important, you will get a question out of these. The metals which are used for making coins, etc., they are silver, copper, gold and aluminium. The metal which is kept under kerosene, sodium as well as potassium, it is also kept under kerosene. Mainly sodium we keep. Why? Because it is highly reactive. So in order to preserve it, we keep it under kerosene. The heaviest metals is osmium. Symbol is OS. This is the heaviest metal. Talking about a few exceptions in the non-metals. Non-metals, the solid non-metals are carbon, iodine and sulfur. The only liquid non-metal is bromine. So we know that mercury is the only liquid metal, bromine is the only liquid non-metal, and in other sense we can say that mercury and bromine, these are the only two elements which are liquid at room temperature. Whether it is a metal or a non-metal, we have collectively called them elements. Next is most electropositive metal is cesium. So these are a few facts that you need to relate, because they have already come in exam so many times. Make sure that you learn them properly and thoroughly. Right? So before ending today's class, let us try to brush up what all we learned in today's class about metals and non-metals. Let us go back to the starting. We talked about what are metals, what are non-metals. We talked about the abundance of metals. Aluminium is the most abundant. Second abundant metal is iron. Talking about the non-metals, oxygen is the most abundant non-metal, followed by silicon. Then hydrogen gas is an exception. It is the only element which, like metals, can form positive ions, and the rest of the properties are like non-metals. Then we studied about the physical properties of metals and non-metals. Let us try to relate them side by side. Metals are malleable, that means they can be beaten into thin sheets. Non-metals are brittle, they can't. Metals are ductile, that means they can be drawn into wires. Non-metals can't. Now I am not repeating the best and the exceptions that we have already done. You already know, so you can go through it on your own. Metals are good conductors of heat and they are good conductors of electricity. Non-metals are poor conductors of heat and electricity. Metals are lustrous or shiny. Non-metals are non-lustrous. Metals are generally hard, right? Non-metals are generally soft. Metals are strong. Non-metals are considered to be comparatively less stronger. Metals are solid at room temperature except mercury, and non-metals may be solid, may be liquid, may be gas. Only liquid is bromine. Metals have high melting point and high boiling point, whereas non-metals have low melting point and low boiling point. Metals have high densities, they are heavy substances. Non-metals have low density, comparatively lighter substances. Metals are sonorous, producing ringing sound upon hitting them. Non-metals are non-sonorous. Metals usually have silver or grey color with a few exceptions, and non-metals have different colors. Quite importantly, you need to learn the exceptions. There are so many exceptions in almost all the points, both in the case of metals as well as in non-metals. You need to learn them, because when we will be discussing the questions based on this, you will find these type of exception questions in abundance. So many questions related to the exceptions. Clear? Then quite importantly, we talked about the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. First property, reaction with oxygen. Whenever metals react with oxygen, they form metal oxides, which are basic oxides. Whenever non-metals react with oxygen, they form non-metallic oxides, which are acidic or neutral oxides. Second reaction is the reaction with water. Now when metals react with water, metals can displace hydrogen because they lose electrons, and they reduce hydrogen in water into hydrogen gas. So they will liberate hydrogen gas and they will form metal hydroxides. When we talk about the reaction of non-metals with water, non-metals cannot give electrons to water, they cannot give electrons to hydrogen, and that is why they cannot reduce hydrogen from their ionic form in water into their gaseous form. That is why they do not react with water. Next reaction is reaction of metals with dilute acids. Whenever metals are reacted with dilute acids, they will always displace hydrogen from the acids, whether it is hydrochloric acid or sulfuric acid. They will form salts and liberate hydrogen gas. But the non-metals do not react with dilute acids simply because of the same reason that they cannot give electrons to reduce hydrogen ions into hydrogen gas. We studied about aqua regia, 1:3 ratio of concentrated nitric acid and concentrated hydrochloric acid. We studied about the reactivity series of metals, right? Then reaction of metals with salt solutions, whether it is metals or non-metals, both of them, the same thing applies, that the more reactive metal or non-metal will displace the less reactive metal or non-metal from its salt solution. Next reaction was reaction with chlorine. When metals react with chlorine, they will form the ionic chlorides, which are good electrolytes, whereas the non-metals will form the covalent chlorides, which are non-electrolytes. Same case with hydrogen. Metals, even though very few metals, very reactive metals react with hydrogen, but whenever they will react, they will form ionic hydrides, whereas when non-metals will react with hydrogen, they will form the covalent hydrides, right? So these were the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. Then we talked about a few uses. You need to learn mostly all. Strategic metals, quite important. Almost all are important. Whether it is uses of metals or uses of non-metals, you need to remember the uses, right? And very important, these important facts about metals and non-metals, which mainly consist of the best and the exceptions and a few other related things. For example, the coinage metals, for example, the hard non-metal, these are all exceptions, right? So this you need to learn by heart. Got it? So we will just end up this lecture here itself only. We have just discussed about the physical and chemical properties of metals and non-metals. And in the next session, we'll be discussing further about the type of bonding and the type of compounds formed when these metals and these non-metals react with each other or within themselves. Till then, please go through the topic taught in today's class and make sure that by the next class you are learning these topics by heart. Clear to all? So, I'll take leave from you. We'll meet you soon in the next class with the remaining topic. Till then, study hard, take care of yourself, and stay happy. Have a good time.